is numb, the Keurig's clean, your dog is dead, it's a Ponzi screen. Ponzi screen, because it's just something to do.
I'm watching Scarface like I do once a month. It's my favorite movie. I'm doing push-ups. I'm listening to Push It to the Limit, and my favorite scene in the movie reminds me of the episode we did with Parafan about money laundering. And it's like, I love it when Tony is making so much money, he doesn't know how to wash it fast enough. And Oliver Stone does this brilliant job of showing us that Tony's talking to like the 100% white bread American banker in Miami, and Tony's like, I need to give you more money. You got to wash my money faster. And the guy is like, well, we're gonna have to take more of a cut, more of a percentage, Tony, if you want to keep moving your money.
Oh, see, I didn't remember that scene. It has been at least 15 years since I watched Scarface.
Sure.
Probably the same period that it was on like a dorm roommate's wall. Like one of the giant posters, but that's a real aspect of it.
Those guys always had the best bongs. The guys
Well,
with the scar. If you have a Scarface poster, you have the best bong in the entire dorm. That's
Or you have a suitcase and you open the suitcase and inside there's a foam padding with molds for all of your glass pipes and chillums.
Oh my god, yeah. Or I mean, though they have the poster, but also they just sell weed. Like they're just selling weed. Like the guy with the Scarface poster is selling weed, not coke. The coke guy, you don't know that he's selling coke.
No, he's quiet as kept. The weed guy's real loud.
Yeah, I got weed.
He's got like 15 different types of air sanitizer, and like a really nice towel, like a beach towel that he got on vacation with his parents in Bali, and he uses that to cover up the door.
So this is funny. This reminds me of I think it was Donald Trump's grandfather. Ended up going out west because of the gold rush. But he wasn't out there trying to get gold. He was out there building brothels and halfway houses for workers who needed housing on their trek out there. So in the same way, the big money's in the weed, but you can still make an honest living off the air fresheners and the glass pieces.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
That is like there is like an old adage, like if everyone's looking for gold, get into the business of selling shovels.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's such a good one.
How do you make a cut? How do you make a cut off of the what's your fee? What's your taste?
Yeah. It's like it's literally being middlemen, and it's also a weird, funny, precarious way of doing it, because if you were to literally get in the middle of a drug lord and say, aha, you must give me some of your money, they would decapitate you. But then if you cloak yourself behind the veil of banking regulation, they're like, ugh, fine, you get 1% of my money, and then that's how it works.
So that is a good segue into what we're talking about today. We are talking explicitly about what the example that Danny was talking about, which is part of this huge expose called the FinCEN Files investigation that BuzzFeed did in collaboration with a group called the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. And they did some really hardcore reporting. And today on Ponzi Scream, we are not going to talk about all the details. We're going to let those people do the hard work. We're just going to have fun with it, guys.
Yes, that's do my homework for me.
Yeah, they're doing the gold mining, and we are selling the shovels of the hot takes.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that. I love that.
Pretty good. Pretty good. That was kind of all right. And so this is called the FinCEN Files. So this is more than So the whole thing is based around American banking law, which, if you guys remember the episode that we did with Daniel J. Parafan, he talked about suspicious activity reports. But really, that was kind of he was really talking about it on a micro level, which is anti-money laundering provisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he talked about, in theory, if someone wanted to avoid anti-money laundering provisions, here's how you do it. And he was very, very helpful. And
in cleaning money, yeah.
In cleaning money, the best way to do it is to have a leftist podcast to launder your gold money through. But mostly, so on a higher level though, when there's high level transactions, when there is, under American law, when there is suspicion that there is some sort of bad stuff going on, some money laundering, mostly, right? They will file a bank will file what is called a suspicious activity report. And money laundering is the crime that allows all other crimes to happen. Is kind of the way that it's well put from someone at somewhere. Probably someone told me that at a bar.
David, the problem in cocaine isn't making the money. That's the easy part. The problem is washing it.
Yeah.
How do I get all of these dirty bills from Ohio back to Mexico City?
I wish the listener could see the Gabe visual right now, which is very. It's exactly how that voice. It's like, how can I do this? It was perfect. It was wonderful.
See, this is that's all. That scene is coming back to me because beforehand, when I think of Scarface, I just think of like the drugs and guns and boobs. Like, I don't actually remember the scene where he was talking about the white collar crime.
Hey, baby, the guns, the drugs, the booze, that's just the ice cream. And Ollie Stone is trying to give you the medicine pill in the ice cream, baby.
Yeah.
And that pill is follow the money, which is also the theme of The Wire. Follow the money.
Whoa. Yeah, I think that Scarface, the big takeaway was the inadequacies of the suspicious activity report.
You mean the SAR?
The
SAR
system.
Right.
What a very unfriendly name for this file.
Yeah.
No.
This secret redacted file that you can't get through Freedom of Information requests. It's so the SAR.
And the corruption is spreading like a global pandemic. Much like SARS.
I'm gonna go ahead and file this SAR COVID-19 report.
Yeah,
it's great.
So the basically this is about the FinCEN Files. So a suspicious activity report is where a bank thinks that there is some chicanery going on in their whatever transaction they are facilitating, and because American banks, because the United States Treasury and the US dollar is the fiat currency. It's the global currency that's used in international transactions. You have to have, oftentimes when you are doing an international transaction, you have to have an American bank involved. But not always. Sometimes you'll have a German bank. Sometimes you'll have a Hong Kongese bank. I don't know if that's the right demonym. Sometimes you'll have a Chinese bank. Sometimes you'll have a Singaporean bank, whatever. And they mostly are facilitating these sorts of transactions, and when they do, they collect a little cut off the top, and just a little something.
Yeah.
And because as a part of doing the business of these international transactions and getting away with it cleanly, they have to. That's their role in the transactions, the facilitation. And if they see something suspicious, what they can do is they can file what is called a suspicious activity report, send it to the United States government, and then let the transaction proceed anyways.
It's you know what it is? It's like a whisper snitch. It's like, Uncle Sam, I don't know if you should be looking at this, but I think something suspicious is happening. And then still getting rich off of it. Like,
Yeah.
there's no incentive for them to actually aggressively flag anything.
Oh, it's the coolest thing. It's so cool. Like it's a win-win for the banks. 100%.
Yeah.
It's incredibly goofy because it's just like if you worked at like a small business and like all of the employees had a system for working as little as possible, but in the corner of the employee like break room there is a small box that says like suggestions, or like helpful things, and the boss will basically look at it and just eye it to make sure that there is a visible pieces of paper coming out of it. And as long as he sees the paper, then it's all fine. Things must be taken care of. So all the employees just make sure that they put one blank paper in there every day, and as long as it looks full, then it's fine.
Yes. I mean, the banks just need to file the reports. And then once they do that, their job ends. They have no if you're a compliance officer at JP Morgan or at Deutsche Bank or one of these other big firms that's mentioned in this, Bank of New York, you just have to file an SAR. And you send that along to the federal government through to this agency called FinCEN. And once you do that, you don't really need to do anything else, which is amazing.
It's the cover your ass provision.
So it's the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, which is an agency within the Treasury Department. You just have to file that to cover your ass, and then there's nothing. And they get the FinCEN will get millions of these suspicious activity reports. Makes them available to U.S. law enforcement agencies and other nations' financial intelligence operations. And it has a little report. But what it does not do, this is from the BuzzFeed directly, what it does not do is force the banks to shut the money laundering down.
It's like, yeah, you can't, yeah, man, that doesn't work if you do it like that.
Insane. I mean, they may as well just be a podcast.
Yeah.
There's no enforcement mechanism. Just imagine if like there wasn't a Democratic Party, there was just like the Daily Show. And that's basically what FinCEN does. Where it just goes in, it points this thing out, it points out this hypocrisy, or points out this illegality, and then has no enforcement mechanism to stop it. It just says, "What?" Like, like that's crazy. And that's like mostly what FinCEN does. And the thing is that there has been an increase in suspicious activity reports that have happened. And meanwhile, I can't remember exactly how much, but since a fair amount of time, maybe in the past 10 years, FinCEN's staff has decreased by 10%.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
They're not even... They're getting smaller. They're getting smaller.
I didn't even know they existed, though, up until this article came out on BuzzFeed.
Yeah.
Oh, I certainly had no fucking clue.
Like, nobody's running around with a FinCEN T-shirt. Like, you've got dudes with the FBI T-shirt. You've got dudes with the fire department T-shirt. No FinCEN T-shirts.
Yeah. I mean, I was into FinCEN before anyone else knew about it. It was pretty cool. Back in the day, I was at that first show.
Yeah.
Where there's only 50 people in attendance at the FinCEN show, but half the people in the audience ended up founding their own regulatory agency.
Yeah. You've got a copy of the FinCEN bylaws on vinyl.
Yeah.
Yeah, just one tired and dejected New York souvenir store shop owner at like literally Wall Street with like 100 of these, just sort of like, God damn it, none of these are selling. God fucking damn it,
Yeah. I mean, I'd be really curious what the FinCEN, like the thin blue line, like what color would it be? I'd imagine it would be
green.
It has to be green.
It's green, baby. It's green.
The thin green line would be the financial cops.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so corny and horrible. Okay, so anyways, the investigation shows a lot of big players involved. Okay, J.P. Morgan Chase, HSBC, Standard Chartered, Deutsche Bank, BNY Mellon continue to move money for suspicious criminals. There are things like international sports. Some of the things involved were FIFA, the Olympics.
Duh. Yeah.
No one is surprised by FIFA or the Olympics being completely corrupt organizations. Hollywood entertainment, luxury real estate, Nobu sushi restaurants.
Nice.
I think we talked about Nobu in a previous episode. It always seems sketchy to me. And basically,
but like at 5 feet away from any financial crime is mediocre sushi, David. Every time, every single time.
So this is more than 200,000 transactions, encompassing $2 trillion in transactions between 1999 and 2017. You know what came out in 1999? The Matrix. Think about that.
Nice.
Suspicious. And why? Yeah. So there is. This all kind of looking into all this data. Basically, BuzzFeed News and their research team looked at internal bank data, thousands of pages of public records, hundreds of interviews with sources across the globe, dozens of Freedom of Information Act filings, 5 public records lawsuits, and requests from 3 federal courts to unseal records.
So it sounds like this is a continuing a case that's unfolding. You know, the situation on the ground is dynamic and fluid, and we're going to get more breaking news from the FinCEN story.
Yeah, there's a lot to go through. Just to kind of look at some of the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists has been writing one-off stories from all of this stuff. I mean, this is kind of like the Panama Papers on cocaine. I mean, it is just. I think it is stepped up a little bit, and so they'll be talking about mystery company ties accused temple raiders to the art world elite. U.S. Treasury Department abandoned major money laundering case against Dubai Gold Company. And I read that article, and that was because of politics, because President Trump recognized that, or the United States government recognized that Dubai was an ally. How banks helped Venezuela's, quote, oligarchs extract billions. A lot of this is Venezuelan oligarchs are using whatever money they're getting into that should be going to, international aid or something like that, or I can't remember exactly all the specifics, but they're using that for just to pocket it themselves, right? And U.S. banks are involved in the entire transaction. There are things like Standard Chartered moved money on behalf of Al Zaruni Exchange, a Dubai-based business that was later accused of laundering cash on behalf of the Taliban. Ever heard of them? During the years that Al Zaruni was a Standard Chartered customer, Taliban militants staged violent attacks that killed civilians and soldiers. And righteously so. We applaud our freedom fighters in Afghanistan.
Yes. 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 Yeah. I think what is particularly telling about this article is not that they are, that there's like, oh my gosh, all this crime is happening. That's crazy. I think maybe cynically so, we all assume that the crime is happening. But what is interesting about it is how publicly, quote unquote, shamed these companies were before, and how they were in many cases given fines of billions. HSBC in 2013, 2014, they got fined $2 billion essentially. I think it was one of the biggest penalties essentially for their participation in laundering Mexican drug money. Essentially, that was it was a big deal. It was a big thing and everything. It was a Netflix episode on dirty money essentially, and the whole idea behind that is wow, we're finally kind of accounting for this sort of, and meanwhile it's just business as usual for these banks. It's you can't catch up. The enforcement.
Yeah.
You can't catch up. The enforcement isn't there. It's like synthetic marijuana, where it's like every time they outlaw one strain of this thing that makes people fucking jump off buildings, they change it by a little bit, and then like that's a completely legal new thing.
Analog drugs.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ways that they could get around this are right now. It just sounds like the SARs are when you've got a light, a camera, but on a traffic light, and it's taking photos of everybody speeding, but they're not giving out tickets for the people who are speeding. Another way to, but this is something that could be stopped. All you have to do is prosecute the CEOs of banks that greenlight these unscrupulous and unsavory transactions with child traffickers around the world, or temple raiders, or the fronts for terrorist organizations.
Deutsche Bank, Jeffrey Epstein.
Okay, so I'm glad that you brought up. I'm glad that you brought up Deutsche Bank, because the frequent filers of suspicious activity reports, and remember, it costs nothing for these banks and institutions to file an SAR, and they're filed by nearly 90 financial institutions. The 10 banks where it was the most common, overwhelmingly, was Deutsche Bank. Like, Deutsche Bank filed 982 SARs for $1.3 trillion.
That's so. What do you do if you are an employee at Deutsche Bank? Because at this point, it's just sort of like you get hired, you're some sort of like, regulatory enforcement person, and your supervisor is just sort of like, yeah, you can file these things if you want. And then meanwhile, you see like a man with a twirly mustache walking out of the bank with a $sign bag, and you're like, "Do you want me to file that?" And then the manager's like, "I don't give a shit, man. I'm just here for the coffee. I don't fucking care, dude.
I'm just here to get my German ska band off the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna be out of this job real soon, man. Banking is not my real passion." And so then the next one is BNY Mellon. They have 325 SARs, 64 billion. Okay, I mean the move down from 1.3 trillion to 64 billion. The next biggest in total assets amount flagged. JP Morgan Chase actually had 107 SARs, but the transactions themselves were bigger, 514 billion. So even the next biggest one was Deutsche Bank was over double what JP Morgan Chase was bringing in terms of amount of money being flagged.
Dude, go with the name that you know and trust. That's what I always say. If you're an arms dealer on the black market, go with Deutsche Bank.
Yeah. If you are not going with Deutsche Bank, you are the biggest sucker on earth. I don't understand why you wouldn't do that. They're experts at this sort of thing. And to think Wirecard could have bought them so recently. So then there's also a few amounts of different types of suspicious activity reported. For example, they look at the BuzzFeed people looked at it's in precious metals, it's in finance, it's electronics, petroleum, commodities. And again, Deutsche Bank just racking up numbers on all fronts. And so happy for them. It's coming from every single state in the United States, more than 170 countries and territories, it does not include Bhutan or Laos or Somalia. Surprisingly, it doesn't include Somalia. That's actually,
Somalia's got like their crime is very analog. That's we're talking about pirating. We're talking about we're talking about fishing schemes.
Yeah,
all right.
They're the crimes.
Why would you sully your good name with electronic crimes?
That's so true.
That's do the good stuff. Do the right and true thing. All right.
It's very locally sourced there.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So the person subject locations, the highest number of people who are the subjects of these SARs is in the United States, and then Russia, and then the United Kingdom, and then China. But really, overwhelmingly, it's the United States. 259 suspicious activity reports filed by Americans. But then if you look at organization subject locations, which is far more of these are about organizations. The first country territory is the United Kingdom, with 622 filed against organizations therein. Then the United States, 435. And then it gets interesting because it starts getting into all these tax havens, right? It gets into the British Virgin.
Oh, yeah.
It gets into the British Virgin Islands. It gets into Cyprus, Hong Kong, and the UAE.
Yeah.
And then Russia at the very end because they're cool.
All places I want to visit.
Yeah.
We should have a company vacation to the British Virgin Islands.
Oh my God, I'd love to go to Trinidad and Tobago. That would be great.
Ponzi Scream is looking for an angel investor who would like to send us to sunny Cyprus.
Also, I should clarify. I think literally every single Somali pirate is better than all these people. All right,
yes.
They are better morally speaking than any banker ever. All right, they are much better people.
Yeah, and they're better they're better than the regulators who are supposed to be stopping them.
Yeah,
I mean, my first thought in reading this was this is the complete neoliberalization of banking enforcement. You are completely abdicating even the enforcement channels to the banks themselves. They file the reports and then nothing happens. There is no actual government oversight. They just have to kind of disclose it and then share it with people, but there's no it is a complete what do they call it, where there is a sector that just overcomes an agency, right? Where an agency just end up being dominated by the sector it is supposed to regulate.
Right.
And
well, I was going to add to that, David. Why is it that these documents even were exposed in the first place? I'm surprised that they saw the light of day, because SARs don't have to be disclosed to the public.
Right. They're not supposed to be disclosed to the public.
So was this like a WikiLeaks type treasure trove of secret documents that landed on the laps of BuzzFeed reporters?
Yes. In short, this is something that is actually being looked at by the Department of Justice because it is a crime to disclose suspicious activity reports.
Oh, that's so. Oh, yeah, and like, dude, their line they had, of course, like the most basest, like child-brained line that they always give with this stuff, which is like, by disclosing these documents, you are endangering United States law, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just the dumbest, it's like the most boilerplate horse shit that they always trot out, like and it's like, look, you want to say that when like Edward Snowden leaks, what all the stuff that he leaked, it's like, okay, maybe that at least that makes sense in context to you saying that. But it's like, what do you mean you're endangering American lives by exposing that banks are fucking frauding people? What are you talking about?
Well, if the name of the bank agent who flagged the suspicious activity is on the document, then that would be that would be the person to execute, right? That's the person
true.
To assassinate. So you don't want to
parody in a parody sense, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
right. Not. But I'm not saying I would do that. I'm saying some temple raider might send somebody out to take care of that.
Some freedom
banker.
Fighter, temple raider, whatever.
Yeah. Taliban freedom fighter. I love that. And so there's that. But then the other like kind of horseshit excuse that is given around not revealing these things is, oh well, if it will disincentivize bankers from reporting suspicious activity.
Yeah.
That is so dumb. That's so dumb. Sorry, it's just insane.
Yeah, if we reward them for doing it, then they'll be disincentivized from doing it. Like,
but if we reward them for doing something that means nothing and will lead to nothing, of course they're going to do that. Like, it is bullshit to think that they like. Of course, you're going to file something and send it over to the government when it is no skin off your back. It means nothing. These SARs that they file, nothing happens with them. So when FinCEN's general counsel said that disclosure of SARs can make banks less willing to file them, which could mean that this is the direct quote that they said, which could mean law enforcement has fewer potential leads to stop crimes. That is just the dumbest thing I've ever, and just so bad faith, a way of thinking about suspicious activity reports, because they are sending these SARs, nothing is happening with them, and then when that gets exposed, the government blames the exposers because they said that could have prevented things from happening. But it's like a Jill Stein, sort of cop out, or sort of blaming someone. It's like Jill Stein didn't make Hillary not go to Wisconsin. The BuzzFeed, BuzzFeed exposing the FinCEN files did not prevent FinCEN from actually enforcing the FinCEN files and the suspicious activity reports. They're calling out the inadequacies. Calling out the inadequacies of this regulatory body, of the person who ultimately holds the responsibility to do the work. And then they're getting blamed for exposing them. I mean, just absolutely absurd logic.
Yeah, it's I just, like, again, I want to know. I really wish we could talk to a Deutsche Bank employee or just somebody who files these. Like, what is your life like to experience this and to do this? Is it such a thing where you're being closely monitored and people are asking you, like, did you file an SAR? Did you file an SAR? And you have to be like, no, I was on Facebook. Or whatever. or is it, do they just not care? Like, is it just so blind? Like, you can do, like, yeah, this is never going to be followed up with.
Look, I think it's entirely on the hands of the CEOs. The responsibility rests there, because when like an individual employee, you can feel justified saying, "Look, I reported the suspicious activity. That's what I saw happening, and there's no one cares." So,
Yeah.
like I write the ticket, but if, like, I'm a cop and this person's like violating some parking, is double parked. I write the ticket, but it's up to someone else to enforce the payment of that ticket. So
Right.
that's
Yeah,
kind of how I see
you're
the
following the
SAR.
chain of command.
Yeah, and it's like the fact that all of these transfers were greenlit to go across national borders is in the hands of the CEOs of these companies or these banks, right? So you got to slap the. I think it was in one of the articles they said you got to slap the silver bracelets on them.
Slap some bracelets.
Yes. Yeah, and it's very telling, by the way they're reacting, that this does actually mean something, because leaking, stuff that's like leaked to the press and what have you. I mean, very often that kind of stuff is, I mean, it's literally like the CIA or like the FBI or whatever, like, or the White House disclosing the information that they want to get out. The fact that they are reacting so negatively, it's very much the lady doth protest too much, over
Totally.
the
Totally.
situation.
Totally. And it is a budgetary issue and a budgetary decision that we have deprioritized FinCEN enforcement. And this is not unique in other aspects of financial regulation. The SEC has been on a hiring freeze for quite some time, last time I checked, and it's not like financial crimes are going away, right? As the economy grows, you should be having, from my understanding at least, you should be at least having financial crime enforcement and economic regulatory enforcement to grow with GDP growth or something like that. I don't know. Maybe just
Sure.
At a bare minimum, right? And if you really want to crack down on it and actually have some sort of capitalism that operates in a way that doesn't create these sort of incentive structures for financial crimes and thievery and money laundering and child sex trafficking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then you need to actually be ramping up enforcement and we just don't do that.
Yeah. Sick. So right
Yeah.
now, FinCEN just has like a Lester Friedman character who's painting miniature houses in a sub basement of the Treasury Department. And
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So
And meanwhile, there's just, I mean, like it's always that it's not that we want we don't want law enforcement to exist. It's we don't want cops just to be like arresting low level like petty thievery and like marijuana smoking in like jurisdictions where it's actually legal to do so. You want to have cops like Lester Friedman, and especially on the financial side. There's just no there ain't none of that. And I fully think that ultimately the culpability lies with FinCEN.
Yeah, I mean, and think about. I mean, we talked about it, very briefly about when Daniel was on. It's like, think about the comparison where it's like if you deposit $10,000 into your regular ass checking account, a fucking little red like alert button goes off and says, "Uh-oh, this person they got $10,000. Some shit's going down. Uh-oh. Meanwhile, if you deposit $1 million all the time, and it's coming from the Sinaloa region of Mexico, they're like, yeah, I guess we'll flip the "it's a problem" switch and whatever. The
Right.
disparity is insane.
Well, because ultimately the big transactions undergird global capitalism and financial capitalism. There's no
Yes.
It is everyone. They think of it as if you overlook it and if you actually start to enforce it, then it's going to harm quote growth for the select global class of people, and that will end up trickling down and affecting everyone else. I mean, the entire thing is undergirded by a financial capitalism that incentivizes and creates these whole things. And because the United States government has this fiat currency where our currency is the most important currency on earth, American elections are the most important elections on earth.
Damn.
There is, and they are completely corrupted. They're totally based on an esoteric slave system. And if you want to have
shout
any
outs
sort
to
of
the
global
Electoral
financial
College.
regulation, what?
Yeah, that's right.
If you want to have any sort of global financial regulation, it all has to pin on who the president of the United States is, which is absolutely insane.
It's
Wow.
it's cool. It's cool. It's real. I love it, and I'm sure it will get better sooner.
Yeah,
I'm sure
I
it's gonna be. Everything's fine. Yeah, totally.
Honestly, that sounded like a great final thought. Vote or die.
Yeah. Truly, vote or die.
Yeah. I mean, the ICIJ talks about how all of this does disproportionately hurt poor people and like the global poor. So for many people, vote or you will, you're gonna hurt all these starving children in Africa that you seem to care about so much. It's all cool stuff. Feeling good about it. I'm stoked about it. Are we gonna keep talking about these FinCEN files?
I'm sure they'll come up in more depth, especially as all this information comes out. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, this was
Yeah.
just like a nice amuse-bouche for anybody who wants to do a full course or a plato fuerte of FinCEN information later.
I
Yeah.
love that name.
Yeah.
That's a great name.
So
Strong
we'll,
plates, baby.
We'll post the links to the initial BuzzFeed article, the ICIJ. In the meantime, like, listen, and subscribe. Love you guys.
Please, thank you.
And take care.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Love it.